What am I looking at?
What are you looking at? It keeps going down. Those bones?
Because
So this is a part 2 to last week's episode where I showed you guys the holes that we have in our front pasture, and that raised a bit of concern for us. We weren't sure what we were dealing with. It could be animal holes, they could be something else. We're not quite sure exactly what they are, maybe like an opening into some underground aquifer or something. They're a mystery, and a lot of people raise the concerns like, that could be something serious. It could be the precursor to a sinkhole. So I think further action is definitely necessary, but I thought before we call anybody out, Dad actually has an industrial endoscope that you got off of Amazon, right?
Right, yeah.
That you initially bought for your duct work, right?
Checking things out at home.
And so I figured, like, how many feet is it? It looks like it might be 20 feet or so.
Yeah, it's fairly lengthy. I don't know exactly, to be honest with you, but it's...
So I was like, you know what? Let's bust this thing out and take a look down these holes and see what we can find. So there's actually a couple. I'm gonna let him run around. I'm gonna keep him away from this hole.
Sure.
There's actually a couple. Most of them are centered around that dead sycamore tree right there. And the working theory that I have is that there was a root system, a very dense root system around that sycamore tree underground. And now that the tree is dead, all of those roots withered away. I could be completely way off base, but that's one of the working theories that I have, just because most of the holes are centered around that. There is this hole here, which could be an animal hole, but we're going to put this industrial endoscope to use and see what we've got going on.
It's like a divot without a hole.
So this is just a bump.
I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think that's just a divot. Why it's there?
Yeah, I don't know.
But let's go look at those other ones.
Yeah.
You see the airplane? There it is. Yeah. So I feel like there's some over here. There's a pretty deep one right there. There's a cluster of them. There's one right there, there's one right there, and there's one right there. So you got your camera on, right?
Yeah, it's on.
Is the light not on?
The light is on, but you can turn it up.
Is it that little button right there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There we go. So one of the things I'm kind of hoping to find is animal droppings, scat, because that would give us a clue that, hey, maybe this isn't a big, crazy geological concern. Maybe it's just a series of tunnels of groundhogs or something. And Dad, you said you found scat.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a full-on cat almost.
That almost looks like a cat, yeah. But it's on the surface, it's not in the holes. However, that makes me think there's an animal that frequents these holes.
Seems to be pretty sound theory.
That this was a root system for this big old grand sycamore that used to be a really tall, healthy tree, but now it's been dead.
And those roots are, I mean, they're organic, right? Mm-hmm. So as time goes on, they'll wither and, I would imagine there'd be a void from where those huge roots are. Of course, I know nothing about that.
So not really that much to see here, under here. Yeah. One thing that we did see, Dad, was some scat on one of the holes.
Yeah, not really in so much, just kind of on top.
Which gives us a clue that, hey, maybe this is being used by animals, but we didn't see any scat inside the holes. And we didn't see any sign of water, which it rained yesterday. So if there was some sort of underground aquifer, you'd think that you'd see something wet, but we didn't. So that lends credence to the theory that we have that, I mean, they all seem to be clustered around that tree, right? Which makes us think that tree died. It died before we moved here.
Yeah, it's been gone for a while.
It's been dead for a while. And so those roots withered away and just left an empty cavernous space, which, what do we do now? That's something we probably need to talk to a professional about. Is that something you just let resolve on its own? Is that something you need to get filled in? I have no idea. But in the meantime, we're gonna go check out, you guys might remember a video from last year where we were trying to figure out some other mystery holes on the property, what we think are crawdad holes down in the woods. And we figured since we have this industrial endoscope out, let's stick that thing down those holes and see, because we've never actually seen a crawdad.
No, we haven't. Some of those holes run deep.
Yes, they do. So, hey, we've got this thing out. Let's give it a peek.
Don't think we have to worry about mosquitoes.
No mosquitoes. Let's take a look. Oh, here's a great one, Dad.
All right.
Any crawdads?
What am I looking at?
What are you looking at? That's
Is that a web? Is that like stuff hung on a web?
It looks like a web. It keeps going down.
I mean, it gets you down there a little ways, but not as far as you'd want.
Just because it bends up.
Yeah.
You hit a root there. No sign of crawdads.
No.
Huh. And I think one day we'll just have a nice big old bonfire to clear out some of this brush.
Yeah, yeah.
And have that hose on standby.
So we did get a little bit of rain in the last day or two, but prior to that, it's been super dry.
Those bones?
They are.
What am I looking at?
I thought that was the turkey. Because we've got all the feathers.
Hey, initially, I saw this. I was like, wait a second, what's going on? This was a turkey. Well, I was hoping that there'd be more of a smoking gun in those holes, and there really wasn't. I mean, there was the scat in one of the holes, which could have been a cat or a raccoon or a skunk or something, but that was it. Otherwise, the holes were fairly dry, fairly unmolested, like there wasn't really much going on in those holes. There wasn't water, there wasn't scat inside of the holes. So that kind of confirms the idea that no matter what, I need to get a professional out to look at that area, because I don't want there to be a cave-in. And when we do get, if and when we get livestock in the front pasture, like sheep or something, we don't want these big, massive holes dotting the pasturescape. And, you know, one of the sheep's legs gets inside one of the holes and they break their legs. And then even more concerning, little Henry's wandering around, toddling around, and he gets into one of those, or it collapses altogether. So no matter what, I know I need to get somebody out to look at this and decide what we do next. Maybe it's something we wait out. Maybe it isn't a big deal. Maybe we fill it with gravel. I have no idea. All I know is that it's a thing. In the meantime, this thing's really fun. It's fun to play with this, and I'll probably be using this for other applications other than just looking at holes in the ground. Like my dad used it for his vents, his ductwork. There's probably a ton of other things that I could use this for. So industrial endoscope, you can get them fairly cheap on Amazon, and this one wasn't too terribly expensive, and it did a pretty cool job. I'll continue to use it. It's not the easiest thing to maneuver around. It's almost a little too flexible, but for what we need it for, just looking into places where we can't see, I think it's kind of perfect and fun to play around with. So I'll definitely be using this in the future. Anyways, thanks for hanging out with us, and until we see you again next time, remember, as always, slowly, slowly.